and I won't back down. Hey, baby, there ain't no easy way out. Hey, everybody, thanks so much for joining us right here on The Right View. Tonight, we are joined by senior editor of the Daily Caller, Amber Duke, as well as host of the Alex Marlow Show, Alex Marlow. Amber and Alex, welcome to the show. Amber, first timer. We love having you on. Alex, this is old hat. You do this all the time, and we love hearing from you. But we're going to jump right into tariffs because Donald Trump said once upon a time that it was one of the most beautiful words in the English language. The Democrats are trying to lay on hot and heavy all of the hysteria out there, and they're trying to convince everyone that the sky is falling, that this is a disaster. President Trump, of course, said April 2nd will be known as the Liberation Day for the United States. And I'm just going to go ahead and read a post of his on Truth Social, just generally talking about China specifically when it comes to tariffs. And then, Alex, I want to get your take on all of this. China has been hit much harder than the USA, not even close. They and many other nations have treated us unsustainably badly. We have been the dumb and helpless whipping post, but not any longer. We're bringing back jobs and businesses like never before. Already, more than $5 trillion of investment and rising fast. This is an economic revolution, and we will win. Hang tough. It won't be easy, but the end result will be historic. We will make America great again. We have seen massive investment already. SoftBank, $500 billion. You have the Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, $100 billion. Hyundai, $20 billion. President Trump is doing something, Alex, right now that is necessary. We cannot, much like Doge is doing something that's necessary, we cannot continue to just let America get ripped off. We can't continue to be, as he says, the whipping post for the rest of the world. He wants free, fair, and reciprocal trade. He wants reciprocal tariffs put in place so that we level the playing field. And I'm wondering, do you think that the liberal media will ever get the hint that what President Trump is doing is not just for him, it's not just for the people who voted for him, it's for every single person in this country and the future of America?
Yeah, from my vantage point, Lara, this is completely about America's future. It's about people who are not even born yet. He's looking at this country at a time horizon of 100 years now. We're not just looking at the next news cycle or when the closing bell rings, or he doesn't care about that stuff anymore. I mean, maybe a little bit, but he knows that he's trying to set himself up to be a historical figure. And one of the things that he understands better than anyone in the world is the threat of China. I think everything is about China. I think he wants Greenland to counter China in the Arctic. I think he's trying to forge new trade deals in Eastern Europe to counter China as well, because if he can bring Russia away from the Sinosphere, I think that's a positive. And a lot of these tariffs, it's about China. And he's going to have secondary tariffs where he's tariffing nations, but he's really trying to tariff China because China will send their goods through those nations and then they will get them cheaper in the United States to the USMCA. I don't think he wants that either. So I think he's thinking about this in a very sophisticated way. If you think about this, China does not allow for American businesses to compete on a fair playing field in China. So why don't we afford them the same things? They steal our intellectual property. They hack into our systems. Then they've got this minimus loophole where if they sell stuff for under $800 and they don't get a tariff on that, all this undermines American businesses and the American taxpayers. Donald Trump's had enough, and he's not going to be deterred by selling off the sugar high that Joe Biden gave us with all of his last minute spending. He doesn't care about that.
Yeah, Amber, the goal is to set America up properly. The goal is that it's going to be easier and more cost effective for people to actually start bringing their companies back to the United States. It's pro-America. This is America First policy that he's putting into action now, because it's not that Donald Trump is all talk, he's all action. That's what he does. And I actually think, despite the fact that the mainstream media out there has been hysterical over this and melting down and trying to, again, say the sky is falling, people kind of get it. They understand that there will be a little bit of upfront pain. But his approval rating last week alone rose from 49 to 53%. I would say that that's because people say, well, thank God somebody actually understands this stuff. Thank God somebody's finally doing the necessary thing. I always equate this, and I take everything probably back to athletics too much, but as a person who grew up playing sports, as a person who still, works out all the time, you never get a result that you want to achieve by doing something that is easy, by sitting around, by sitting on your couch. If you want to change the way you look, if you want to win the game, if you want to be the best at whatever your sport is, you got to put in the work, you got to put in the time, and it has to be painful to a certain extent to be the best, to do the right thing. That's where I feel like America is. But I think the people of this country, Amber, are like, I think, yeah, we got to get what Donald Trump's doing. What do you think?
Oh, I think the athletics analogy is great. And as a faithful Catholic, I would also say that I maybe am also a little bit more predisposed to the idea that suffering can bring about great outcomes as well. But look, I think what's so important about Trump's tariff policy is that he is speaking up for the missing middle in this country.
Right.
And what has been commonly referred to as free trade, which is not free at all, it's actually been the opposite of free and fair for the Americans for decades now, thanks to the fact that all of these other countries have significant tariffs that they place on American exports, has been a disaster for the American middle class. We have seen income inequality become more stratified every single year, and wages for middle class and working class Americans have been stagnant over the past 3 to 4 decades. No one in elected office has been willing to speak out for those people, or at least, put into action policies that are going to help bring back good paying jobs with key labor protections, the kind of things that an American used to be able to go and work in one of these jobs and support an entire family. Now we have more families working, both mom and dad working outside of the home, and even then sometimes they have to take on a second or a third job just to be able to buy a house. And I think this is a generational gap as well. You see young Americans in particular saying, I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to buy a home. I don't know if I'm going to be able to afford to start a family. If I do start a family, I'm not going to be able to stay home with my kids if I'm a mom who wants to make that choice. So this is exactly what both of you said. Difficult, but absolutely necessary to restoring a healthy and functioning American economy. To me, it's just common sense, and something that's long overdue. The short-term pain obviously is real, but there's also this massive disconnect between people who are very reliant on equities trading in the stock market, who are upset by the recent losses. But overall, let's look at the fact that the stock market's still well above where it was just 2 years ago, 3 years ago, back in 2022. But you have a significant portion of Americans who don't have any money in the stock market, who would never dream of having a lot of money in the stock market, and who have been languishing on the sidelines as the elites have been having their cake and eating it too.
Yeah, 100%. And President Trump says that over the weekend, I think maybe even on Friday, he had like 50 different countries, leaders call him to talk about, doing something with these tariffs. I mean, people are very clearly responding to this. And Amber, you just brought up the fact that no one else has been willing to do this. If you go back 10 years, even 20 years, and in some instances, and you look at people like Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, Barack Obama, they were all talking about the fact that we needed some sort of reciprocal tariffs, that things were not working in America's favor, that we were being ripped off, and they did nothing about it. They did zero. They didn't have the guts to actually do what President Trump is doing right now. And that's what it takes. You've got to have a bold leader. You have to have someone who's willing to say, you know what? I love when the stock market is high. We know that he bragged about it a lot during his first term in office, stock market high after stock market high. He doesn't like seeing those numbers, but he understands they're going to come back. He understands that this is something we have to do for America. And he's the only one, Alex, who's been willing to do it. Where was Nancy Pelosi? Where was Chuck Schumer? Where was Barack Obama? They were all talk. They were no action. Donald Trump's getting it done.
Yeah, it reminds you of also how they had Obama wanted a Doge led by Joe Biden, and then now that Trump's doing it, it's bad. And then like Schumer and Pelosi like trade when they liked tariffs when it was their idea. When it's Trump's idea, they hate it. This is one of the things that resonated with me and us at Breitbart at the start of Trump's rise in 2014. is that he had adopted this slate of issues where he took the Democrats' best ideas and he stole them from them. And ripping up NAFTA, which is you associate with the Republican establishment, the Democrats too, but largely the Republican establishment and the Democrat establishment. And he said, no, we're going to rip up NAFTA. We're going to redo trade. And we at Breitbart were going, oh my goodness, that's incredible. I love that idea. And so now that he's actually doing it, people are shocked. It's like, wow, he's actually doing the thing that he promised he would do, which is just unbelievable, because you would think that we would want occasionally for the people we elect to do the things they campaigned on, and he's doing it, and we're all just completely beside ourselves. Like, oh my gosh, how could he actually do the thing he was on the campaign? This who he is. He is the genuine article. He's an authentic person. He wasn't campaigning on things that were jokes to him. He was campaigning on things that he'd been thinking about for decades. Before I was probably even cognizant, he was thinking about, we're getting rolled on trade and it's an injustice and he wants to fix it.
Yep. There's a famous Oprah interview where he talks explicitly about this situation and what should happen and how he hates to see America getting ripped off. He hates to see China winning. He talked about Japan actually in the video I'm referencing at the time, but he has been, you're right, Alex, he's been talking about this forever, and he's finally got the opportunity to do it, and he knows that it's going to be great for America.
Lara, you guys in Amber's point too, talking about hard work and the meaning of suffering. And it's do we want to have, I was making this analogy with John Carney, who's our finance editor at Breitbart. We were talking about this, and he was saying that how much more satisfying is it if you're making a state-of-the-art dashboard for American-made car so that Americans can drive their families in it, and that's your job, versus delivering lukewarm food for DoorDash or getting universal basic income sent to you by some tech billionaire? That's not satisfying. That doesn't, you don't want to live your life that way. And Trump understands the dignity of a job well done. That's why he's the blue-collar billionaire.
Yeah, of a hard day's work. And we're, you know what, it's such a great point too, because Amber, I feel like we're a society who has just shied away completely from the idea of a hard day's work and the dignity and the pride you have in doing that. We've made it easy for people to stay home. I mean, look at how much of the federal government wasn't even showing up to the office. I mean, from day one, Doge had a very easy job. They were like, well, these people haven't shown up in 4 years, so good luck. You're done. We're over it. That's also part of this. Once you restore America to a position where we are on this competitive, even playing field, and people are manufacturing again in this country, and it's making it more affordable for companies to buy American and hire American, that's a great thing overall for the rest of this country. I have a fitness clothing line and I manufacture everything here in the United States. Let me tell you, the bottom line, whenever you look at manufacturing in America versus manufacturing overseas, all these people are trying to convince me. They were like, you're never going to make the amount of money you otherwise would if you ship it out to Vietnam or you go to Taiwan or whatever it is. But we want to change that. And we want American workers to be proud and people to, feel great about going out to whatever job it is, to Alex's point.
And that's the amazing difference between the commentary that you hear from Trump and his allies and advisors versus the progressive left, which is that they both recognize that the lack of a middle class in America is a problem, but the left's solution is to just tax the rich and redistribute the money down through universal basic income or a larger expansion of the welfare state. Whereas on the MAGA side, they want to give people meaningful employment, things that give their life purpose. And there is meaning, inherent meaning and value in hard work. And one of the other fascinating things that I've seen surrounding this conversation on tariffs is that you have this panic over the idea that this is going to be terrible for the American economy. Prices are going to skyrocket for the American consumer, and the idea of reshoring manufacturing is just a pipe dream. And the obvious retort to that is, why are all of these other countries imposing massive tariffs on the United States economy and our exports if it weren't beneficial to them?
Right.
Are we really to believe that hundreds of countries around the world have tariffs because they hurt the consumer? It's just idiotic.
Yeah, exactly. Touche, and well said, Amber. Exactly. Not that I want to get off the tariff situation, but it's something everyone's obviously talking about. Something I don't think enough people are talking about. Still, Alex, I'm still not over 2020. I'm still not over the stuff that happened during that election. And I don't think I'll ever get over it. I hope we actually get to the bottom of it because there was a lot of funny business, not the least of which was Hunter Biden's laptop being called Russian disinformation, us as a country, the people of America being made to believe that, this was something we shouldn't actually pay attention to. Yet if you go back and look at the polling post that election, the number of people who say I would have voted differently if I knew that laptop was real would have swung the election in and of itself. Now we're finding out that an FBI worker was gagged when he tried to warn that the Hunter Biden laptop was real. He was deliberately gagged from off on Twitter. I guess there was he wanted to post something about it. And you go back and look at, like I said, that election, and you start to think about the implications of the FBI saying, no, we're going to allow these 51 intelligence agents instead to write a letter and say it's Russian disinfo. We don't want anybody actually confirming that it's real. Alex, that to me seems like that's pretty bad. I don't know what should happen to someone in the intelligence community who is preventing the United States from getting that information. That was an important one.
Yeah, well, we also know that Hunter Biden almost certainly was acting as a foreign agent to make money for his family and should have declared that there's a FARA violation pretty clearly, as well as Joe's brothers, Frank and James. And that's why these pardons went back so long and they're blanket pardons. It's because they probably did all this stuff. And I detail where all the smoke is. I wrote a book about this called Breaking Biden. I'm not plugging it to make money. I don't think I'll make more money off of the book.
No, but I love your book. Yeah. It's fantastic.
That's very kind of you. And I point to where all the smoke is, and not a single issue that I address, and there's hundreds in the books, 1,400 endnotes in the book, where there was actually any full accounting of what happened. Not a single one. So in a way, if you really want to dedicate a lot of time and resources, we could spend years trying to understand the extent to which the Biden family has been corrupt. And I would like to do that. If President Trump has time, I would really like that, because I feels like this is that family took advantage of our system so much. And for whatever reason, the establishment, the permanent political class in Washington did everything they could to protect them. The thought that all of those national security professionals went out on a limb the way they did to say that they put their whole reputation on the line. They're all losing their security clearances under Trump because of it.
Which is fantastic.
Yeah, it is fantastic. It's amazing and good for Trump for doing that. But the fact that you would basically blow up your entire reputation and credibility for this corrupt family of junkies and losers, it's just mind-blowing that happened in the United States of America and no one's been held to account for it.
Are you tired of destructive content flooding your screens? Well, I was too. That's why I joined the Angel Guild community. I want an entertainment that inspires and uplifts, not drags us down. With Angel Guild, I can vote on upcoming films and support movies that reflect values I align with. Plus, I get early access to inspiring content. I no longer have Hollywood Entertainment pushing its agenda into my home. Angel Studios is leading the charge, creating high-quality, faith-filled films like Sound of Freedom, Cabrini, and Homestead. These movies are powerful, impactful, and a must-see if you haven't already. Where we put our dollars shapes the future of entertainment. Let's support content that amplifies light and protects our kids from harmful influences. Please join me in making a difference today by visiting angel.com/LARA. That's angel.com/Lara to join the Angel Guild now. America's national debt has soared past $36 trillion, but smart investors are turning to gold. During President Trump's first presidency, gold surged over 52%. This year, gold has already broken records, soaring past $2,900 an ounce, and analysts predict it could even hit $3,300 soon. Now's the time to find out more about investing in gold. Call 855-704-GOLD or visit goldgatecapital.com. You can buy gold with cash or easily add gold and silver to your IRA or 401k. And for a limited time, you could get up to $15,000 in free silver with qualified purchases. Goldgate Capital has an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau and thousands of 5-star reviews. Don't wait, claim your free gold information guide today. Call 855-704-GOLD or visit goldgatecapital.com now. Well, and I just want transparency, Amber. That's
Yes.
all. That's all that I think we all want. I'm not looking to lock somebody up or, I mean, look, you do the wrong thing enough, and if that's a valid, thing, then great. But that's not the goal. I think that this country deserves to know. My God, we have gone through hell in America. We survived COVID. We had to come out on the other side with Joe Biden in the White House. God only knows, what was being promised by Hunter, to Alex's point, to all of these countries, to China, to Ukraine, to Russia. It's just, I need transparency. And I think the American people would love to know about that. And I am very curious too. What was exactly said to Joe Biden when Nancy Pelosi and Barack Obama called him after that horrific debate and said, you got to drop out? We've got to get you out of this. What was said to Jill? Because I think a lot of people believe Jill was keeping him in it. What was the threat? Was some of this part of it? Was it, that we're going to expose all the things that your family's been doing? I just think we deserve a little transparency, Amber.
I completely agree. I mean, the Biden administration was repeatedly lying to the American people, whether it was through his allies insisting publicly that his cognitive and physical health was totally fine. Now we have all of these new books coming out, years after the fact, indicating that his team was preparing for him to die in office as early as 2023, which was around the time that he infamously tripped over that sandbag at the commencement address, I believe at the Air Force Academy or West Point. And then also Ron Klain, one of the top advisors to Biden, now saying, oh yeah, so during debate prep, he actually couldn't get through an entire session. He would leave to go to the pool and randomly fall asleep in his chair. And also he probably believed that he was president of NATO as opposed to the United States of America. Again, all while the press secretary and other members of the administration were telling the American people that there was nothing to see here. You all are conspiracy theorists. Mm-hmm. And then they lied to the American people repeatedly about the Biden corruption scheme, about the classified documents that were kept in his garage, using the levers of government to compel social media companies to censor that story, to circulate the 51 signers of that laptop letter. The American people are just tired of being lied to, and they absolutely deserve honesty and transparency around these questions. I think it really goes back to COVID in 2020, when Americans were repeatedly called conspiracy theorists for raising legitimate questions about the origins of COVID, and then following that, the efficacy and usefulness of the vaccines. It's just been one example after the next of the wool being pulled over our eyes. And it would be a massive benefit to this country if we could just get an accounting of what really happened, just a small taste of the truth. I think would have people feel a lot prouder to be an American and a lot more satisfied with what their government's doing if they were able to see behind the curtain.
Yeah, there was so much. Remember they called the videos that were very clearly just regular videos, cheap fakes? Remember that? Yeah. It wasn't even that long ago. That, like, how stupid, Alex, did they think we all were, that we were just going to fall for this? At some point, I mean, we live in like the information age. You can look anything up at any moment. And somehow they thought like we would never get there. We would never figure out that Joe Biden had some real major issues, like the cheap fake stuff. It's all crazy.
Well, remember, I know we're going back a couple news cycles. Remember, Jake Tapper is putting out a book about Biden's decline and cover up. And it's like, what cover up? Like, we all knew he was in decline. Like, this is the place where I'm totally off the same page as everyone. It's he was still, for whatever reason, they were able to inject him with enough of whatever so that he could.
But see, we need to know what that was. What was that?
We would like to know. But he rallied until that one debate with Trump. He'd rallied every single time, every single State of the Union, every single prior debate. Remember, he did much better against Trump in the 2020 debates than Hillary did in 2016. Trump crushed Hillary Clinton in those debates. Joe Biden it was a much closer debate in 2020. So until that last debate, he was, for whatever reason, he could rally. But of course, he was in decline. We all knew it. And thanks to the auto pen and him knowing his way around Washington, he was able to survive the presidency. But I'll tell you, when I was researching the Biden book, I was constantly hedging against him either dropping out or him dying. And I always thought he would make it. And that prediction looked really good until summer 2024, because he's just a force of nature in that way. But it was one of those things where you're always thinking this guy might not have much longer to go.
I think a lot of people thought that. And if you go back to some of the interviews on this show, even, a year ago, I remember saying, I don't think Joe Biden is going to be the nominee for the Democrats. And so many people were like, yeah, I don't believe that. But we all saw it. We all saw what was going on. The best is that I think it was Piers Morgan I heard over the weekend on Fox, and he said that the best hope the Democrats have in 2028 is Joe Biden, dead or alive. Well, that kind of explains it all. They're in such a bad spot. And look, as the former RNC co-chair, it makes me feel good that our party is on top right now. But you also want some like valid competition. This is like a slam dunk contest with 5-year-olds. You're like, yeah, I'm going to win that one. We could do with some competition. We really have none. But I'll tell you who also is just kind of like really out there, and I don't know if he's ever coming back, James Carville. Apparently, he was sort of comparing, Amber, anyone who supports Trump and cooperates with Trump, they're akin to Nazis in his view. He basically started off, there's this video of him online, and he starts off by essentially saying that there are companies out there who are trying to buy access to President Trump by giving him all this money. I mean, I assume he's talking about like the soft banks and whatever. They're investing that money, by the way, in America. That's for every single American. That's positive for the whole country. Donald Trump sees zero of that. And I'll remind everyone, as always, Donald Trump gets no salary. He didn't get a salary during his first term in office. He donated every quarter his salary as president. He's doing the same thing this time. But then he went on to basically say that the people who are there supporting President Trump are much like the people who supported the Nazis. And he says, I remember a time back in 1944, whenever after World War II in Paris, the people who had cooperated and collaborated with the Nazis, they had their heads shaved and they were marched through the streets of Paris and they were, absolutely ridiculed. And I'm just wondering, like, where is he getting this? How is anything that's going on right now in any way like World War II and the Nazis? They're going back, Amber, to the Nazi thing again with Donald Trump. I guess they're just out of material. What is that?
It's wild to me because everything that you said about the Democratic Party is true. The latest CNN poll has them at a 29% favorability rating, which is the lowest in recorded history. They have no clear leadership. There's all of this infighting over how.
What are we talking about? Hold on, Jasmine Crockett. We got clear leadership. We got Jasmine.
I know. I hope
Keep
that
her
they
at
keep
the
pushing
top.
her forward. It's amazing.
Yeah.
But amidst all of this, James Carville is supposed to be the voice of reason for the Democratic Party. Like, he's the person calling out the woke nonsense, but at the same time, he is equally as delusional as the rest of the party. I interviewed him on my show, Rising at the Hill, a couple of months ago, and he was talking about how, they need to get away from the pronouns and get away from the DEI and the ESG and all of that stuff. But then he starts railing against Trump, saying he's a threat to democracy and that he's fascist coded. And I'm just sitting there like, you still really don't get it, do you? And I think, there's been a lot of talk about how the Democrats have a messaging problem. At least that's what they'll have you believe, that they just need to figure out how to package their policies better. No, the problem is the policies themselves. The problem is that you all are adopting these crazy ideas that receive no support effectively from the American people. And no matter how you tie that up with a pretty little bow, it's not going to be any more palatable for the average American who has seen how disastrous your policies have been in action.
It's something. I'll tell you. Not that, I mean, James Carville's always been like a little crazy, but Alex, whenever they went off and they got crazy about Elon Musk because it looked like he was doing a Nazi salute in a still shot when he was all amped up on stage and he was kind of getting excited, that all of this stuff, it's just I don't get it. They've gone back to the same material that didn't work the first time.
Yeah, they have always done this where anyone who disagrees with them is a Nazi, and it's fine because it's just all it shows how weak they are. And again, Amber's point that they don't have leadership is real. I mean,
Yeah.
I make the Crockett joke, and maybe it's only half a joke now, but they don't have any charismatic leaders. They don't have anyone with a vision. All of these people are they have no fresh blood. They have no one who's charismatic. Everyone's a hypocrite, and it's one of these things that it does provide a huge opportunity for us to run up the score because the resistance is really just coming from the judges, the lawfare judges. That's really the only place where they're having any momentum right now to shut down President Trump. And that's great. And Carville's just creating content for us. He's not real.
Yeah.
I don't even know if he's a real person. He's just a content person. He's like a character. He's like a cartoon. And he's one of these things where we only cover him because it's interesting. People click on it and talk about it. And I have no idea if he holds any power in the Democrat Party at all.
I mean, not for a long time. And I think wasn't he most well known for helping get Bill Clinton out of a sticky situation back in the day?
Yes, I think so.
We'll leave it at that. One of the things that obviously most people were excited to vote for President Trump on was the border, was making sure that we have a secure border, but we never talk enough about the money that has gone to, facilitate this invasion of our country because my God, it's cost us so much. You look at New York City alone and it's billions and billions of dollars they've spent. California is right behind them. And Dr. Oz, who is the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services Administrator, has now pledged to get back, Amber, all the money that California spent on healthcare for illegal immigrants. The federal government provided them a lot of money, and it was supposed to go apparently to different causes, something I assume to do with Medicare and Medicaid. And instead, they paid for health insurance for people who broke our law to come here and shouldn't be here in the first place. I like to hear that. I'll tell you, that is music to my ears. That just goes right along with, I think, what Doge is doing. I think it goes right along with Kristi Noem, getting people who are, murderers and terrorists out of our country. ICE in New York, by the way, over the past month, got 133 illegal immigrants out. 3 of them were convicted killers. 20 of them had a criminal background, and 9 had previously been deported and they're back. This is the kind of stuff we want to see more of. And Dr. Oz, I like it. He's on board.
Absolutely. This is a no-brainer. The amount of taxpayer dollars that have gone to illegal immigrants over the past 10 years is honestly criminal. And I find it so funny, during the first couple of weeks of this new administration, you saw the liberal media complaining that the deportation flights were going to be too expensive, that they were millions of dollars. Can we do a direct comparison to how much a deportation flight costs compared to the free housing, the food stamps, the credit card vouchers that these illegal immigrants were getting in these major metropolitan areas? Because I guarantee you.
How about the state-of-the-art medical treatment? Because my wife worked at a county hospital in LA.
The free public education when they're not paying taxpayer dollars. I would guarantee that the amount of money taxpayers were spending on these people living here illegally far outpaces the cost to get them the heck out of our country.
Flights. Wait, what is it? What was your wife doing, Alex?
Yeah, so she worked at a county hospital in LA. I mean, they don't ask for your papers when you show up. I mean, you just get state-of-the-art treatment. You get tens of thousands of dollars of treatment. In LA, it costs, I don't know, over 10 grand to educate a child per year. And so illegal aliens get access to public education. So if you have 3 illegal alien children in a family, I mean, we're talking like 30K a year, maybe 35K a year of taxpayer funds to go into their education, and multiply that over 12 years or 13 years. And you gotta be kidding me. I mean, this is hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars to keep these people here. So honestly, we should have a program where we can fund the flights. Like I will help. Like, I will save taxpayer dollars.
Yeah, let's crowdfund them.
People would 100%. Yeah. By the way, you had hospitals. There were several hospitals, I think, in Colorado who over the past couple of years had to shut down because they were so overrun with caring for illegals, and they couldn't actually sustain themselves. They said they went bankrupt. They couldn't do it. That's a good idea. Maybe I'll suggest someone in a position to potentially have something where people could fund that, because I think people would be happy to. And then, Amber, we wouldn't even have to hear about it from the liberal media. And then we have anything to say at all about the flights out of here. So that's not a bad idea. Just to wrap us up today, there was a video I saw online. I just want to get both of your takes on this. Amber, do you have kids?
Not yet.
Okay.
God willing.
Yeah. Okay. So I know Alex does. I have two. And there's always this idea whenever you're going to tell your husband or significant other that you're pregnant, how do you do it? Like, what's the play? You see all these kind of cutesy videos online and they have the pregnancy test and they wrap it up or whatever it is. So I saw this one and a girl went to McDonald's and put the pregnancy test with the positive result in an ice cream cone that she then got for her man. I don't know, husband or boyfriend or whatever he is. Then she kind of doctored it up so it looked like she had just given it, had just gotten it from the McDonald's worker, takes it over to him. And that's, by the way, that's not even real ice cream, I don't think. I think they did studies like that stuff never even melts. So she could doctor it up very easily. And then as he's like licking the ice cream cone, he finally gets to something hard and he pulls out the pregnancy test. Here's my thing. That is probably the worst way I've ever seen for anyone to announce that they are pregnant. You pee on that thing, Alex. Did your wife ever do anything like that to let you know that you were going to be a dad?
No, absolutely not. And you're right about the pee. That's what I was thinking the whole time. I was thinking,
what?
I know Pornhub and OnlyFans broke everyone's brain, but that is just, we keep finding a new low for us to go in this regard. And it's just, how about an old fashioned, here's a kiss on the lips. We're pregnant. Is that okay? Or no, we got to incorporate pee in this. It's very strange to me.
We had to go there. It was Amber.
But Lara, my last point here is that we're so lost. Like, remember when we started the gender reveal craze at the same time we acted like the gender wasn't fixed? Like it's at the same time we decided that children choose their gender when they're 13 was the time that we decided that we needed to have, a midget in a pink outfit and a midget in a blue outfit, like wrestle each other. The winner is the gender. Why did we do this at the same time? It just shows we're all nuts collectively.
Yeah, Amber, I mean, I don't know if you had any thoughts about this. I'm going to suggest shying away from this one.
I can tell you my husband would be furious if I gave him a food
I was
item.
thinking about Eric. I was like, if I did this, my husband would have been like, not only am I not happy about any of this, I also want a divorce. Like, we're done.
I think Jonathan, my husband, would actually have thrown up if he had realized that he were licking an ice cream cone that had my pee stick in it. I mean, that is just beyond disturbing. I'm with Alex. Just, I think simple is best. Our proposal was it was private. It was low key. I can imagine that the same would happen if we end up getting pregnant, that I would probably just tell him excitedly. I think all of these extra things actually kind of take away like the beauty of the simplicity of these moments. And
it's like a sacred thing.
Yeah, you don't need the extra stuff because the thing itself is so wonderful.
Yeah.
Why would you need to dress it up with all of this other nonsense?
I mean, I get that, like, urine is supposedly sterile, but I'm not in the market for trying it out myself. Just saying.
In all seriousness, though, is that I remember the conversation I had with my wife when we found out we were pregnant, and they sear in your brain. They are so beautiful, and I could tell you about them. And they're magical, romantic moments of your life, the best moments of your life. But I will say, if she also presented me a soft swirl, like without a pea stick in it at the time, I would have enjoyed it. I would have definitely.
See, they don't have, you could have that, but just don't put it in there. Like, she could have allowed him to have the ice cream and then kind of like slid it over on the table or something.
Here's a soft swirl with Jimmy's. Like, that would work for me.
Yeah, some blue sprinkles or whatever they're doing. I don't know. You guys are both awesome. Alex and Amber, thank you so much for joining us here on The Right View. To everybody at home, as always, make sure you like, subscribe, share, and follow, and we'll see you back here next time for more. And I won't back down. Hey, baby, there ain't no easy way out. Nothing is worse than being on a phone call that drops. Nothing is worse than trying to text someone and you can't reach them because your phone is out of service range. And nothing is worse than supporting these major corporations and companies who don't support us. That is why I love Patriot Mobile. They are America's only Christian conservative wireless network. They use every cell tower out there available to all networks so that they have the greatest 4G and 5G coverage nationwide. and they support the causes that are important to us as conservatives. If you go today to patriotmobile.com/Lara Trump and use the promo code Trump, you will get free activation today. Again, that is patriotmobile.com/Lara Trump. The promo code is Trump for free activation so that you can get a great cell plan and feel good about doing it.